Hello everyone and welcome to Throwing in the Towel, the weekly series where I take a hard look at the NFL's losers and decide which team's season is officially cooked. I'll go division by division, crown an AFC rep, an NFC rep, and finally pick the one team to throw in the towel on this week. And we start per usual in the AFC East, which has the Dolphins and the Bills. So for the Dolphins, this team must figure out what they can do offensively to take advantage of the roster's remaining talent minus Tyreek Hill. They didn't do that on Sunday. Instead, the team wasted a 17-0 lead and gave up 200 yards to Rico Dowell. And for the Bills, well, Buffalo has some new competition in the AFC East, with the Dolphins and Jets seemingly out of the playoff and division race. The Patriots proved that they can now go toe-to-toe with the Josh Allen-led Bills. After winning 5 straight division titles, Sean McDermott's squad shouldn't look at Sunday night's outcome as a fluke. The Patriots found a way to slow the Bills' offense and not allow Allen to beat them. Over in the AFC East, we have every team but the Steelers, who were on a bye this week. And we start with the Browns. And there were some glimmers of optimism for this team in Sunday's loss in London. Dylan Gabriel was okay in his NFL debut, throwing a pair of touchdown passes without an interception. Next week will be a tough one in Pittsburgh against the Steelers, but there's a manageable stretch of games after that, a stretch that should give the Browns an extended look at whether Gabriel has the potential to be any sort of long-term solution under center, or if it might be time to throw out put in Shedeur Sanders and see what he can do. For the Bengals, the good news in Week 5 is that Jake Browning and the Bengals offense finally showed some signs of life. He threw 3 touchdown passes. Jamar Chase had a big day. The bad news, none of that mattered even a little. The defense is still bad, and Browning is still a turnover machine, which has led the team to make a trade for Joe Flacco. Will that make things better? Maybe, maybe not. I'll give it a week and see how it goes, but I'm not entirely optimistic about it just reading it on paper. And for the Ravens, this team might be done. Their season might be over before we have even hit Halloween. Their defense continues to be terrible. Even with the injuries, it hasn't really mattered all that much. Things weren't any better against Houston, especially for the offense. The offense just played terrible and couldn't really do anything outside of one Derrick Henry touchdown that took them way too many attempts to get. AFC South, no representatives this week. The towel was thrown in on the Titans, who did get a win. Along with every other team in Division 2, the Colts, Texans, and Jaguars, every team was a winner in the AFC South this week, so congrats to that division. Over in the AFC West, we have every team but the Broncos. We start with the Raiders, and there's no reason to sugarcoat it. This team is not good. Geno Smith can't stop turning the ball over. Chip Kelly refuses to lean on his first-round running back. And the offensive line looks like it's battling for participation trophies. And I have to knock the defense as well. They gave up a lot of points in that game and did not appear to be all that competitive. For the Chargers, a year ago and for much of September, things looked different for this team. Jim Harbaugh, as the head coach, had this team playing physical, disciplined, and showing that they were capable of winning tight games instead of blowing them. Over the past 2 weeks, well, the Chargers don't look like the team they were at the beginning of the season. They are still 3-2 and still have a playoff caliber roster. However, they have not played good enough consistently to overcome sloppy play or injuries on the offensive line that is currently missing 2 starters, one of which they will not have back, as Rashawn Slater was ruled out for the season. For the Chiefs, after Monday's loss, there are legitimate concerns about Kansas City's ability to get back into the title chase. The Chiefs have managed to weather rough starts in the past, in large part because of their ability to play smart, efficient football. Monday's game was a slop fest with like 13 penalties called on the Chiefs, and Kansas City is sitting at 2-3 because of it. So now we move over to the division representatives. Over in the East, we have the Dolphins representing. Over in the North, we have the Browns. And over in the West, we have the Raiders. So of these 3 teams, which will be representing the AFC this week, it will be the Miami Dolphins. The offense looks disjointed, the O-line is folding faster than a beach chair, and Tua's accuracy is heading south with the temperature. Now we move on to the NFC side of things, and we start, per usual, in the NFC East, which has the Eagles and the Giants. And for the Giants, this team will ride the highs and lows with Jackson Dart under quarterback. Last week, He helped lead them to their first win of the season, but he turned the ball over 3 times in a fault performance against the Saints, which led to the team ultimately losing that game, despite the fact that they were leading at first. And for the Eagles, even though they have to iron out issues on the offensive side of the ball, still, the sky doesn't appear to be falling for this team. This team does seem to thrive on drama, but there are warning signs that this team must weather a mid-season storm for a strong finish to the 2025 season. Over in the North, we have no representatives this week. The Packers and the Bears were on byes, and the Lions and Vikings both got wins. Over in the South, also no representatives this week. This might be a first for throwing in the towel. 3 teams with no 3 divisions with no representative. But over in the South, the towel was thrown in on the Panthers and Saints, who got wins. Congrats to them. And the Buccaneers got a win. The Falcons were on a bye, so no representative there. And lastly, we go to the NFC West, which has every team but the 49ers. Go figure, the team that's the most banged up is the one that's left standing. For the Cardinals, there's a legitimate debate to be had about who the NFC West best team is, but there's no question who's the worst. The Cardinals. Arizona should be 3-2, but this was a team that could not do anything in the second half. A team that lost to one of the league's worst teams in the worst way. For the Seahawks, the scoreboard is all that matters in the NFL, but there wasn't a team that looked better in defeat than the Seahawks. Sam Darnold in this came up on the wrong end of a good old-fashioned shootout with Baker Mayfield, but for most of the loss, Darnold was wheeling and dealing, and Jackson Smith and Jigba continued his early season rampage. And for the Rams, 1 week doesn't make or break a season, especially one early in early October. But the day may come when the Rams look back on that Week 5 loss to the 49ers with a sense of profound regret. A game that was theirs to win. A game that ultimately got away from them. So now we shift over to the NFC Division representatives this week, which has 2 teams, the Giants and the Cardinals. And of these 2 teams, who did I pick to represent the NFC? It's the New York Giants. I mean, this is a team that understandably didn't want to trot out Jackson Dart at a rookie quarterback right away, but unfortunately Russell Wilson didn't play and wasn't playing. But unfortunately, and maybe not surprisingly, Russell Wilson just did not play well enough early in the season to justify him continuing to be the starter, especially with the Giants having a bye so late into the season. So hence, you get Jackson Dart starting early, and you had a high of his season debut winning against the Chargers and the low of his second game against the Chargers. As I said, you're going to have the highs and the lows, and that's just what the Giants are going to be stuck with. I don't think they'll be a playoff team, but it could be interesting, and it could be promising, and maybe it saves Brian Daboll's job. So now we move over to the recap section. Week 1, we had the Panthers, who got a win against the Dolphins, and as I said, Rico Dowdle had a great game for him. Bryce Young, I mean, he still has to establish himself as the franchise quarterback, but he certainly has helped his team. I mean, he's not exactly helping his team in the first half, but in the second half, he's kind of turning things around. So, still really kind of tough to get a read on Bryce Young. Still not rescinding my decision on the Panthers. I still think they're pretenders. For the Saints, hey, Kellen Moore and Spencer Rattler finally got their first wins, so congrats to them. Still not going to change my mind on this team, though. I still think they're pretenders. Same thing for the Titans. They got a win, but that was really more about the Cardinals giving the game away than it was anything that the Titans were doing. Nonetheless, a win is a win. So for 1 week, everybody can kind of just take it easy in Nashville. And then the Jets, still without a win, still playing sloppy football, especially on defense, which is supposed to be Aaron Glenn's specialty. And when the noise is starting to reach the pitch of potentially Aaron Glenn being one and done, things have gone backwards in a really, really bad way. So that will do it for the recap section. As you recall, to wrap up Week 5, we have the Dolphins representing the AFC and the Giants representing the NFC. That is your Super Bowl throwing in the towel Super Bowl matchup this week, the Dolphins versus the Giants. Of those 2 teams, which did I pick to represent for throwing in the towel this week? Well, that towel is flying south for the winter because I am throwing in the towel on the Miami Dolphins. They are done. Another potentially hyped up team coming into the season, sinking back into mediocrity where the Dolphins have seemingly found a home for past number, who knows how many seasons. But anyway, Miami can pack it up. The season's over. That's my team for this week, the Miami Dolphins. And that will do it for this week's edition of Throwing in the Towel. And I will see you all next week for week 6.